Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong, they are weak but he is strong. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Jesus loves me when I'm good, when I do the things I should. Jesus loves me when I'm bad, though it makes him very sad. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. And every day I look to you to be the strength of my life. You're the hope I hold on to be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life today. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life today. Every day I look to you to be the strength of my life. Breathe on me and make me new. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life today. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life. Be the strength of my life today.
Hey everyone, for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Mike Gabler. You guys might have seen me around. A lot of you guys probably do know me. My wife's Jody Gabler, and we have a little one on the way coming in November. So we're excited. It's our first kid. And speaking of that, happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. I know it's a weird one for me. This is the first Father's Day that my dad's in a different state. I think my dad's tuning in to watch though. So happy Father's Day, Dad. And hope you guys get to have a relaxing afternoon or evening or whatever you guys have planned for that. But anyway, just a little bit about me. I've been, kind of in the area for a long time. Living up in a rental up in Magalia, trying to rebuild from losing our house in the fire, those kind of things, and expecting a baby on the way. So anyway, Dave and Caleb reached out to me not too long ago about preaching coming up, and I basically said, yeah, that'd be fun. I'd love to preach. What's the topic? And Caleb was like, well, the topic's kind of wide open. It's kind of whatever you feel like God's telling you, share with everybody. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, so are we going to be meeting in person again? Because of COVID, we haven't been meeting. And Caleb's like, no, it's going to be on camera. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to preach. But no, I'm actually excited to be sharing with you guys a little bit today. But it is really weird because right now I can't see anybody. I'm staring at a screen that has a picture of myself. So I'm preaching to myself right now, and it's very awkward. And I'm also a very mobile person. I like to move a lot. So if you see me moving, try to ignore it. I'll try to limit it the best I can, but I'm kind of ADD when I'm talking in front of people and stuff. And it's not ideal for me to be far from the camera and walking around and stuff. So bear with me. I do have some notes off to the side too. So to help kind of keep me on track and keep my ADD mind somewhat focused with that. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, Dave and Caleb were talking to me about that. So yeah, so talking with Caleb, he said, yeah, just whatever you feel like God's got on your heart. So I started praying about it and just, what do you have for me, God? What do you have for the church? What do you have for the community, God? Because, I can pick 9 million verses out of the Bible and start preaching on, and I have ones that I could probably, do a full sermon right now without even cracking the Bible open and have it all memorized. But I wanted it to be something that wasn't just something I wanted to preach about or something that I just knew really well. I wanted it to be something that connected with the community, connected just with all of us. And so I was praying about things, and in the process of me praying, is just, thinking through the last 2 years and the struggles that I've gone through personally over the last 2 years. And thinking about that and kind of how I've dealt with those things, the good or the bad. On top of there's a reading group that I have with, it's me and three other guys, and it started as like the sole fact of just trying to be in the Word every day, so we hold each other accountable by checking in with each other. We have a set amount of verses we read, and it's kind of evolved into a little more than that, where we kind of check in with each other personally, and it's starting to grow. And it's just a group where we're just trying to be closer to God and trying to do it together to hold each other accountable. But anyway, right now, one of the books in the Bible we're reading through was the book of Psalms. And so praying through things, reading through the book of Psalms. One of the Psalms you guys are probably familiar with, it's Psalms 23. And reading through that again here recently, it sparked up last November. I got a chance to go to the youth workers retreat up at Hume Lake. And there's probably a few of you that are watching were up there with me, but we spent that whole week just going through the first 6 verses of Psalm 23. So between me praying about it and looking at my life and the Bible reading that we're doing with that group of guys, and then me going back through my notes from that conference we were at, and just hearing about things like that, I was like, I think I need to preach on that, because one, it was good for me to review all of it, but I think it'd be good for you. And so anyway, on top of that, then, last week we watched that video, which if you have not seen the video from last week, get a hold of it, watch it. I don't know if it's on yeah. Anyway, find it, watch it. It was incredible. Or the film, as Dave called it. But it was incredible. That video put what's been on Jody and I's heart for ministry for a number of years into context, into words. There was parts of what they talked about in there, which I was just like, I don't know what this looks like. And it's so foreign to American church and American culture. This concept of slowing down and looking at God, and slowing down and witnessing what's around you. And so when I was watching that video last week, I had no idea the video was going to be played for service. And I'd been thinking about what I was going to preach on. And looking at that, there was a quote that stood out in that book, or in that video, and it was, "We need to slow down enough to catch up to God," which I just liked that statement a lot. I love that statement because it sounds like it doesn't make sense, because if we slow down, how are we going to catch him? But the reality is we need to slow down so that we can be with God, because God has this pace that he's setting out that is the pace we kind of need to be at, and it's the way we are in tune with him and all of that. So that verse kind of, or that quote kind of hit me, and then I'm like looking at all the stuff of what I was going to be preaching on, and I go, wow, this kind of all connects, and I love how it intertwines and it connects with things. So if you guys are following along, if you guys have your Bible and want to flip to it, we're going to be in Psalms 23. I'm going to be reading out of the ESV version, if you guys want to follow along with that. But basically, just to give you a little context of the psalm, if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's a psalm of David. So David, who we just spent several weeks learning about and studying some of the strength struggles, encounters that he went through, was the psalm of David, and he's kind of crying out in the psalm of, it's kind of a prayer to God of saying, this is who you are to me, this is my relationship with you, and this is what I strive for and why I strive for it. So it's this really unique interaction that he has with him. So I'm going to read through it, and then we're going to kind of break it down a little bit, and there's one part that I'm going to focus in on a little more than the others, but let's go ahead and read. So starting in verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So this verse or this passage is painting kind of a picture. For me, I see some of these elements: the green pasture, the shadow, the valley of the shadow of death, his rod and his staff, the house of the Lord. Some of these things he's talking about, I can picture. And I think when I first was exposed to this verse, I looked at it as kind of like this face value. Oh, God wants me to chill out every now and spend more time with him, which is true about this verse, but there's so much more packed into this scripture that I want to break down this week for us. So starting off in verse 1, it says, "The Lord is my shepherd." When we were up at Hume Lake, one of the pastors that was speaking stopped. Like he read that first spot and just stopped right there. And he said, the way David starts this is crucial because he says, "The Lord is my shepherd." He doesn't say the Lord is, some king off in this far land. The Lord is, the king of everybody. The Lord is this, blah, 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 whatever it is. He doesn't start off that way. Even though those things could be true about God, he doesn't start off with that. He says, "The Lord is my shepherd." He makes it very personal, a very personal statement. And I think that's how this is designed for us to read too, is saying the Lord is my shepherd, is making this verse very personal for us as well. And then he says, "My shepherd." For David, we learned about David. He was just a little shepherd boy prior to, defeating Goliath and being named king and all those things. And so the concept of a shepherd would resonate really well with David because he was someone that spent a lot of time out with the flocks, with the sheep, and gathering those things. So he's basically saying, even though I was a shepherd, even though I guided sheep, he's like, you are my shepherd. You are the one that guides me. You're the one that controls where I'm at. You're the one that comforts me, and we'll get into some of that in a minute. Next part of that, I shall not want. Now, what this is talking about is, it's not saying that we're not going to have wants. All of us are going to have wants. We're human. We have desires. What he's getting at, though, is that God is going to take care of our needs. We're never going to have to ask God for our needs. And that was the role of the shepherd, was the shepherd takes care of the sheep. He leads them to places to eat, which is the following verse. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. The shepherd was the one that took the sheep to where they needed to get water, where they needed to get food. He's the one that protects them. He's the one that guides them. He's the one that leads them. The sheep hear his voice, and they are his. So it's their shepherd. And this is the correlation that David's making here, is that the Lord is his shepherd. The Lord is the one that leads him to these things. And I really like how the ESV says it, is he says he makes me lie down in green pastures. Is God wants a relationship with us. And yeah, the lie down meaning, oh yeah, we need to physically rest and we need to nourish our body. And that's a part of it. But it's so much bigger than that, is God wants to be with us, and he's going to force us at times, which I have it's kind of long, interesting story about several years back for me and a story like that. So if you want to hit me up for that and find out kind of where that verse came alive to me for the first time, just let me know. But I don't want to get into it today. It'll take up a lot of time. But that's what God's getting at here. Or that's what David's getting at here about God, is that God nurtures us. He takes care of us. He protects us. He guides us. We don't need to have wants because all of our needs are taken care of. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So once again, he leads me, making it personal again. He leads me in paths of righteousness, meaning if he's leading, if David's following, then the paths that David's going to go down are going to be righteous paths, because God won't lead us to paths that aren't righteous. And then it follows it up, which I think this is very crucial to this verse or this part in verse 3, where it says, for his name's sake. So the whole thing, he restores my soul. God's redeeming us. He can restore us no matter what we've been, what sin we've fallen into, what we've done. God can restore that. He leads me in paths of righteousness. If we're following, he's going to lead us towards that righteousness, to being Christ-like. But it's not because we're great. It's not because we're amazing. It's not because we've accomplished all these things. It's because God has. For his name's sake. It's because of God that these things are possible. It's because of that relationship that any of this even happens. Verse 4, I'm going to skip for a minute. So if you're following along, we're going to jump down to verse 5 because we're going to come back and spend a little bit more time on verse 4. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. So once again, this is another verse that gives us a pretty picture of, you prepare a table for me. One, it puts God in that servant role that, when Christ came down, he came to serve. Yes, he's our king, he's our Lord, he's our savior, but he also came to serve. And him preparing that table for us is one, him taking care of us. It's him providing for us, but it's him also being that servant nature that Christ had. Even though Christ was king, he's Lord, he was a servant. In the presence of my enemies. This is an interesting verse because I don't know if I was you, I wouldn't want to be sitting down at a table eating dinner while my enemy was standing right here. I'd be kind of like, did you poison my food? And Christ is saying this it's in the presence of my enemies is because Christ is a protector. God's going to protect. He's going to guide us. He's going to even show through us. Christ's glory can be shown even to the people that we don't get along with, we dislike, are flat out our enemies. And that's what it's getting at. And then it goes, you anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. And this is getting into the fact that Christ is going to anoint us if we're following him. And he's going to have our cup overflow so that God's glory is flowing out of us to all those around us. And that goes back to the rest of the verse, though, is that we have to be that one to follow God and have that relationship. Verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So David wraps this up by saying, if I'm doing these things, if I'm following you, you're going to do this and this and this, and mercy and goodness will follow me. It doesn't mean life will be easy. It doesn't mean we're going to be frolicking through a field of daisies. It doesn't mean any of that, but it means that we're going to be taken care of with mercy and goodness. And to wrap it up, I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David is saying that if I have a relationship with you, if I pursue you, you're going to do all of these things that he lists for me, but I also get to dwell with you in heaven forever. Like that's my home, is heaven with you forever. So that's kind of a synopsis of we can go way more into depth in pretty much every single one of those verses. I just don't have time today. So I want to back up though, because verse 4 is the one that really stood out to me. And I'm going to read it again, and we're going to kind of break it down in kind of a little bit of a weird way, but I'm going to read it one more time. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So there's a couple things in this that I really want to point out. Is it starts off by saying, even though I walk. So this is what that connection of me bringing up that video that we watched last week connected with me about, is he's talking about walking. And when I was back in my notes from Hume Lake, is the pastor that was sharing with us that night on this section of Psalms, because we spent 4 days going nothing through these 6 verses. And so he was going through this, is that he brought up that he said, I personally don't think the translation of I walk is a mistranslation. It's misquoted. It's misscriptured. I think that is super authentic to what the original text said, because he said, we walk through valleys. Now, I don't know about you, when stuff's going wrong in my life, I typically get in the mindset of, if I could just get through this, if I just get over this cold, if I just get the promotion at work, if I can just get through this season that's really difficult, if I could just get on the other side of this, if I could just finish mourning, if I could just, and we're always in this mindset of, I need to get through this, I need to work through this, I just wish it was over. And I'm guilty of that all the time. And when you look at this verse, it says, even though I walk, we're not meant to get through the hardships quickly. And I know that kind of sounds weird, is that, I hope that our hardships aren't long. But if we're running, and I don't know about you, if you've ever done like a sprint, what are you focused on when you're sprinting? You're like tunnel vision, you're like this, and you're sprinting to the finish line. All you can see is the finish line. And if you look to your left or your right, it's going to slow you down. You miss a lot. And I think what David's getting at with this is he's saying, even though I walk, meaning we should be walking. Because if we're trying to sprint through the valley of the shadow of death, the hardships we're going through, we're going to miss things. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying to move out of these and work our way out of whatever hardships we're in or whatever sin we're caught up in or whatever it is. We should be moving away from it. But if we run, sometimes we miss what God's trying to teach us in that. And that's why I think David was intentional with saying, even though I walk through it, the valley of the shadow of death. Now, the valley of shadow of death, I really like how the ESV words this because it says the shadow of death. It doesn't say death itself. It's just the shadow of it. And that's encouraging me because Christ beat death. Christ overcame that. He's more powerful than death. And the fact that it's the shadow of death, meaning the valley we're going through, the struggle we're going through, the hardship we're going through, the sin we're going through, is a shadow of death. It's not death itself. It's leading towards death unless we move away from it, especially sin. But it's the shadow of it because Christ has overcome that already. Because then it follows up with the very next verse, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And that's what he's getting at. That's what David's trying to get at here, is that Christ is with us. He's not up on this mountain. Because if you're in a valley, right, you're down at the lowest point, and there's all these mountains around you. It might be a big valley, small valley, whatever it is. But there's mountains around you. And God isn't sitting up on the top of the mountain with his binoculars going, looks like Mike's about halfway through. Hopefully he doesn't give up. Hopefully he keeps going. That's not how God works. God's down in the valley with us. He's down there walking alongside of us. He's grabbing our hand. He's carrying us when he needs to. He is in the valley with us. He doesn't just sit and wait for us on the outside. So if you look at that verse in that context, is we're walking with Christ through our sin. We're walking with Christ through our struggles. We're walking with Christ through our hardships. We're not doing it alone. We're not just kind of fending for ourselves. Christ is walking through it with us. And if he's walking with us, he's also teaching us. If you look at the New Testament and all the Gospels, and when he's interacting with his disciples, they're on the road a lot. They're traveling out. They're also sitting and eating a lot, which, he sums that up later with, I prepare a meal for you and blah, blah, blah. But Christ is in the valley with us. Christ is teaching us why we're going through things. And then it sums up that verse with saying, your rod and your staff, they comfort me, which is basically saying the shepherd normally would have a rod or a staff, and it was twofold. One, it was, I'm a dumb sheep. I start going this way. He could use the staff to guide me back. It was a symbol that I could see, but it was also to fend off predators. If you were a wolf and you take, a rod to the face, hopefully you would leave the sheep alone. So that was twofold. But that's where he's saying, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, because your rod and your staff, they protect me, they comfort me. But looking at this verse, looking at how it is, and seeing what that video said about how we need to slow down enough for us to catch up to God. And if you mix these two things, the one that the video is getting at is that a lot of times we miss what God's putting in front of us. So the video was talking about that, is a lot of times we miss what God's putting in front of us because we're on, we have our to-do list, we have our mission, we have our next level, we have our next promotion, whatever it is that we're so focused on, we miss who's around us, who God's put in our life, the opportunities he has to be closer to him and to spread his word. And then you look at this verse, and it's basically David saying we need to slow down and see what God's teaching us in this time, even when we're going through hardships, even when we're going that, because God's with us. And I think looking at these two things is that in my own life, I need to slow down. Not just slow down like in my mindset of how I look at spreading the gospel or how I look at my relationship with, in all areas. I'm too focused on worldly things. And I know you've probably heard 100 sermons on that kind of stuff. But I need to focus on Christ, and I need to focus on what he's doing around me and what he's trying to teach me in these things. Because God has that plan, and a lot of times it's hard for us to see. And a story that pops into my mind is in John 11, a story of Lazarus. And Christ, Jesus, when he's on earth, a messenger comes to him and says, hey, Lazarus is dying. You need to come quickly. And Jesus goes, hey, I'll get there when I get there. And he takes a few days before he even leaves. And when he gets there, Lazarus died. And you're like, wait, this is weird. Like, why didn't he go there? He could have healed him. And it's very interesting in John 11 because what it says is he shows up, everybody's mourning, they're crying, they're saying, if you were just here, Christ. And what does Jesus do in that? He cries with them. He cries and he mourns with the people. It's not like he was going to be like, oh, I'm going to do a magic trick here in a minute. Hopefully Lazarus comes back. Christ knew that Lazarus was going to come back in that story, but he was going through the valley with the people. He was allowing them to experience and grow out of that situation of mourning, but also learn more about Christ and become closer to Christ because they got to see Jesus wake up a dead dude. And that's how I want to live my life, is in a way where I'm listening to God, God's with me, and I'm growing even when things suck. Because I know things in my own personal life have not been easy. The last 2 years has been insane for, I'm sure, most of you. I had a grandpa pass away, fire happened, had another grandpa pass away. My family, my sister, my nephews, my parents, they moved out of state recently. I had lost my house in the fire, and all these things suck. I've changed jobs in the last 2 years. I've lost friends in the last 2 years. Friends have moved away in the last 2 years. And the last 2 years have just been suck. That's the easiest way to wrap it up. And looking at that, though, is a lot of times I get so wrapped up in the, oh, we need to move on from this. Oh, I need to move on from this. Oh, I need to get this done. And sometimes I don't realize the blessings that God gave me. My wife and I tried to get pregnant for 3 years. And in this season of suck, God blessed us with getting pregnant. We're going to have a kid in November. And, although I had all this family move out of the area, God's blessed me with really key, crucial family or friends that I consider family that are in the area still, that I can lean on, even though, my family's still there for me, but they're a couple states away. And that's a blessing that Christ gave me in that. That's a blessing in the middle of all this suck. I had a roof over my head this whole time. Might not have been where I wanted to be, but I have. And I'm going to have a new house. I'm blessed that, we were able to rebuild and we're hopefully going to get to move in soon. And when I look at things in that perspective, I go, why am I complaining about all this other stuff? Why do I care what all this other stuff is going on? Like, God's blessing me. And God's teaching me things along the way. He's teaching me to slow down. He's teaching me to live in the moment. He's teaching me to spend time intentional with people. And I think that's what the video was getting at. And I think that's what Psalm 23 is getting at. Is Psalm 23 is getting at, love Christ, lean on him. He's with you. Follow him. Dedicate your life to him because he's going to bless you. And that video was getting at is, if we're going to be blessed by Christ for following him, we need to slow down enough to learn more, be closer to him, but also to see those people around us. And it can be little simple things. It's going to look different for all of us what that means to slow down and be more Christ-like and have relationship with those around us. We're not saying you have to be best friends with everybody in the community, but just a few days ago, there was 2 middle school girls that my dog started barking at the window, freaking out. And I saw people in the front yard. I opened the door and there's 2 middle school girls that had baked cupcakes. And we lived down the street from them and they wanted to bring them to us. And that was like, wow, they spent time to bake this. One, they were probably just having fun baking, but they spent time out of their day just, and it probably wasn't a lot, but to come down there and say, hey, we care about you. Here's some cupcakes. And they were delicious, by the way. But that was a little thing that impacted Jody and I more than these kids probably even realized. And it's little things like that you can do. It's, like in the video, he was meeting people, he was getting to know them, and it wasn't just their name, it was who they were and really getting to understand them and building that relationship. And because they were building that relationship, he was able to show Christ and share Christ with them, but also he grew from Christ, and this person he's talking to grew from Christ. So for me, I just kind of to start wrapping things up, I know I've been kind of rambling a little bit, but is that if you hear anything out of this message today, is that I would hope you would just hear that part of Psalms 23:4 is that we need to walk through things so that we don't forget, we don't miss out, we don't miss on learning, we don't miss opportunities from Christ, but knowing that Christ is going to go through us in those walks with him, in the struggles and the good times and all of that. And my encouragement with you guys would just be, look at your life around you, look at the people around you, spend time with them, get to know them better. And I'm not saying you have to go out of your way to do it, but be more intentional with the people around you. You know, gardening can wait a little bit longer, or watering the garden, you can do that later. Or I'm on garden subjects. I don't know why. That's what I was just thinking of, because I probably got to go water my garden here in a minute. But I encourage you guys to just look at your life and figure out where you can slow down and focus on Christ. And if you're in the good times, enjoy them. If you're in a struggle right now, know that Christ is going through it with you, and he's probably teaching you something along the way. And you might not ever know what that is, but yeah. So anyway, that's, a little bit out of my heart and what God's been kind of teaching me in this COVID season. Well, longer than COVID season, but I just wanted to share a little bit of my heart with you guys today. And if any of you guys want to have questions, reach out to me, ask questions or whatever, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or however you can get a hold of me. That's cool. I'd be more than okay with that. But anyway, I'm gonna pray for you guys, and then I'm gonna turn it back over. Lord, I just want to thank you for who you are. Thank you for what it is that you do for us. And it's amazing that you are patient enough to walk through things with us. Even when we're impatient, when we're not listening, we're trying to run through it. When we're ignoring who you're putting in our path and the things around us, that you're patient enough to walk with us through that, Lord. Pray that your word would have been heard today, not for my glory, but for yours, Lord. And I pray that this message would encourage those and motivate those to just love you, follow you, pursue you, and just see what you have laid out for them, and slow down enough to just see what you are doing in their lives. I pray all this in your name. Amen. See you guys later.
Well, that was so good. Oh my goodness. I got lots of notes.
Good. I'm going to look at the comments here.
No, Mike said, first off, thank you, Mike, so much for sharing that. That was spot on and tied really in. I love how you wove last week and, Psalm 23 together. There's a dog.
Yeah, we have a dog.
Mimsy's joining us.
Yes, Mimsy's going to join us for a discussion.
The tie-in between the two, even though I walk, not run, we don't run through the valley. And he said, we're not meant to get through hardships quickly. What a profound statement. As soon as there's hardship, struggle, something we don't like, COVID, all the bizarre things going on during the season, our focus is on how can we get through this quickly? How can we get back to normal? Not what is Christ teaching me about himself during this season, and what is he teaching me about me? Because this whole season has revealed things about me that I obviously don't like.
Yeah.
I'm maybe more angry or more frustrated than I give myself credit for. So the hardship reveals stuff in us that needs to change, needs to be purified.
Yeah. Being totally vulnerable here, or honest. I'm not that it's a big deal, but when he's sitting there, once everything's settled down and I'm listening to him talking about not rushing and all that, it's like when all that tech stuff happens in the beginning and I'm losing my mind going, 1,000 miles an hour trying to fix it. I mean, I don't think, obviously I should go any slower, but the contrast between, here we are just trying to worship Jesus and do this, and I'm just about ready to lose my mind. I mean, it's just jarring. It is jarring.
It was stressful morning.
It was
so
a
to
stressful
sit down
morning.
and just take a deep
So
breath
sorry,
and
you
go,
guys.
I just need
Yeah.
to walk and just
Yeah.
rest.
To then have him tell me, just slow down and walk.
And to
It
know
was
that
so
he's
good.
that
Yeah.
Jesus, like a shepherd's, just going to calm down the little sheep.
Right.
Just sit down
Yeah.
and relax. It's going to be okay. Take a chill pill because
Yeah.
my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel weird saying it because we got bigger problems in the world than tech, but still. Yeah.
Any of you else feel, in Mike's words, like you're in a season of suck?
I love that.
Yeah, and we want to recognize.
Season of suck.
Yeah.
That's 2020.
Yes.
You recognize too that word is a generational word, and I know some people don't, but we get it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I feel like it needs to be kind of a jarring word
Yeah,
because it's such a jarring season
Mhm.
that
It
it
is.
conveys.
It conveys it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been terrible in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But while we're in it, look for what God is doing and don't fight it, basically. That's what I'm taking from this. We have no control, number one. So you're just kicking and screaming. It's like a child throwing a tantrum and they finally just lose all that, just lay there.
Yeah.
And that's he's kind of waiting for us maybe to just stop kicking and screaming and just go, okay,
Yeah.
here I am. It's not going anywhere. I can't fix it. So what do you want to do, Jesus? What are you trying to teach me? Patience, forbearance. I mean, there's so many things. And just realizing that we can't speed this up. We can't hit fast forward. We are in it as long as it takes. And we can waste it or we can learn from it, I guess.
Yeah.
Look around and see what he's trying to do, what he's teaching you, and who's there, who you can spend time with. That's what I'm trying to do. Just go, okay, I cannot control anything here. So what can I control? I can control my reactions. I control how I interact with you. That's it. That's all I can control.
Yeah, and the implication at the end there too. I mean, the gist of the scripture is that God is walking with us through, and yet we're called to be Jesus with skin on. Like kind of going on what you're saying. For us to be that for each other, to walk with each other through the valley of the shadow of death. I mean, that's how God often works, is through us, through each other. Yeah. And it's kind of tough though, because you think of a strong person who's weak, but we're all kind of in this together.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
bearing each other's burdens. And I know many are like, man, I don't have much to give. I just want someone to help me. And everybody's looking at each other like that, So.
One of the most profound but significant things we can do during this season is look for people, especially when it's a focus on, we are thinking about our hurt and our suffering and the things we are going through. And it can tend to be very, me focused.
Yeah.
And it is good to have focus on ourselves and our feelings and to identify what we're going through. But there are so many people, not just in our church family, but our community, that are feeling so much isolation and loneliness. And the most significant and important thing we can do is to walk with them through their valley of the shadow of death during this time. To be looking for who is the loneliest person out there, who is the most isolated person out there, and how can I befriend, be intentional, be relational with them.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have a couple of comments.
Yeah.
So Heather's made me laugh because I feel the same. She says, he must have a lot he is trying to do in us because our seasons of suck have been lasting for a long time.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah, but then Judy kind of tagged onto that and said, I believe that we learn and grow from each time in the valley. I've also come to realize that God loves me enough to bring me back to that valley to learn and grow from a situation. Or in her case, times of clinical depression, she says, if I rush through it. My prayer has been, Lord, I don't want to be here. So get me out of here as soon as possible. But not a minute before I've gained what I need to from being in this hard place.
That's
Very
good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, so my 15 months of waiting to get back into full-time pastoral ministry must show me that I am a poor learner and I am a runner, and God needed to take an extended period of time to slow me down purposefully so that I could learn something meaningful during that time.
Yeah. I like Deanna's comment's good. I think it's important to recognize walk is there to also remind us to keep moving. I know we would prefer to run through the valley, but sometimes we feel like we can't even move. Walk is a good pace word.
It's good.
And I think that's good. And also the through word, not run away from, not run around, not run like...
And not camp in.
Not camp in,
Yeah.
but walk through. And a lot of times with difficulties, all this talk about how God wants to... There's running past it, there's running away from it, and then there's walking through it. So there's a through and a walk. It's good. Yeah.
Well, what can we look forward
Yeah.
to in the coming weeks? We're starting a new series.
Yeah.
On
We said a
1
bunch
Peter.
of stuff in the beginning, but a bunch of you missed it. And again, so
It wasn't
sorry.
your fault. You
Wasn't
missed
your
it.
fault. If you were struggling...
Technology demons were at work.
If you were struggling to find the feed, that was not your fault. We don't at this point we don't know whose fault it was, because everything was set up right. It just went crazy. But yes, we've got a new series. I'll be kicking off a 1 Peter series next week. That we're going to be doing. So read chapter 1 if you want to prepare your mind and heart on that. So that starts next week. We also mentioned that we are in a serious conversation about getting a place where we can gather in person on Sunday morning, outside in the shade. Outside because actually this place is great. It feels better than in a building, but also so that we don't have to be tied down by the restrictions on size. As it is, we would have to be in a really big building, even for a small church like us, because of the 25% rule.
And the social distancing.
Yeah, all that stuff. And so we'll still have some restrictions, just to tell you. We're still following guidelines, and outdoors has guidelines too, but they're not as bad as indoors. So please pray about that. We'll let you know more details if it works out, where and everything. But
we're hoping to be able to start, and irregardless of whether we have this location or not, we are going to be having a picnic on Sunday, July 5th, hopefully, after church. And maybe it'll be at this new location. It might be somewhere else, but we'd like to get together. And we're looking at July 5th, Sunday after church, meeting for a picnic. So you can kind of bookmark that in your mind, and we'll give you more details. It'll be somewhere. It will happen. We're just not sure where yet. But,
if it has to be in my backyard, that's
on the dirt. Fun. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's coming up. But yeah, be in prayer. We're excited, and it looks like there's long-term possibilities for this place as well, with buildings and such. So they have other facilities. So we're seeing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
God will provide. So we don't have to do this much longer.
Yes. This is driving us crazy. So anything else?
And happy Father's Day to everybody.
Yeah, happy Father's Day. We wanted to say a little more about Father's Day earlier. Actually, LaShawn had a little devotional, but the tech went crazy.
So just know, if you're a father, you're loved. You have a very important job, and we all have the perfect Heavenly Father, no matter what your earthly father was like, and they're all flawed and failing, but Jesus is there as our Heavenly Father, and thank you for that. So.
Yeah. In fact, if you could, you want to actually close our time in prayer?
I will.
With a Father's Day.
I will.
And then you can, get ready to...
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Yeah,
okay. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are the perfect Father that we all need. We have so many needs that we can't meet ourselves, and our earthly fathers failed miserably in meeting those needs. Jesus, you alone are there to meet all our needs. Thank you, Father, for loving us, for your salvation you provided, for this good earth we're living in, for the fact that you're in control of everything, all the chaos. God, you have a path for us to walk, and you are teaching us along the way if we just open our eyes and see and cooperate with you. So, Father, help us this day to choose to follow you, to choose to walk, and to listen and look and take it slow. Thank you, God, for your love for us and for this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Have a great Sunday, you guys, and you'll see us next week, and
hopefully we'll see all of you in person really, really soon.
Yes,
Pray.
yes. Okay, God bless.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
That's right, Godspeed.